You never know who you're really talking to. That's what Jasmine Carter learned the hard way. Because the man she laughed at on the street, the one with dirt on his coat and a smell nobody could ignore, yeah, that same man walked into the room the next morning. But not looking for spare change. He was there to change everything. Let me take you back 48 hours. Jasmine Carter was on top of the world. At least she thought she was. 26 years old, college educated, and dressed head to toe in designer knockoffs she swore were real. She strutted down downtown Atlanta like she owned it. Heels clacking, phone glued to her palm, attitude sharp enough to cut steel. Jasmine was headed to a job interview at Haven Tech, a rising tech company with a six-figure reputation. She wasn't just looking for a paycheck, she was chasing status. But that's the thing about Jasmine. She thought her resume made her important. She thought having a car and a place to sleep gave her permission to look down on everyone else, especially people like him. She saw him sitting there on the corner outside the coffee shop, hunched beside a pile of torn grocery bags and blankets. His coat was frayed, his hair was matted, and his eyes, they didn't flinch, not even when people walked around him like he was trash on the sidewalk. But Jasmine, she didn't walk around, she walked right up to him. She was live on Instagram, showing off her new outfit, and when the man looked up just for a second she turned the camera to him. "Y'all look at this," she said, laughing. "This man really out here smelling like 3 weeks of hot garbage and bad decisions." He didn't say a word, just looked at her. And that silence, it should have told her something. But Jasmine didn't do lessons. Not then. "Get a job," she spat, rolling her eyes. "Or better yet, get a shower." And with that she flipped her weave, grabbed her oat milk latte, and stepped into the cafe like nothing happened. But something had happened. She just didn't know it yet. Fast forward 24 hours. Jasmine was seated across from a sleek, glass conference table on the 21st floor of Haven Tech's Midtown Tower. Her nerves, barely hidden, she was wearing her best blazer, holding her portfolio like it held the key to her future. And maybe it did. The HR coordinator smiled, looked over her paperwork, then said, "One of our senior team members will be joining shortly. He likes to personally meet all final round candidates." Jasmine smiled. Perfect. She was ready. But the smile faded fast, because when the door opened, in walked him. The same man from the street corner. Same eyes. Same face. Only now, he was clean-shaven, dressed in a tailored charcoal suit, carrying a leather folder, and looking like money. Jasmine's jaw nearly hit the floor. He looked her dead in the face. "Miss Carter," he said coolly. "Good to see you again." She tried to play it off. "Oh, I think you have me confused with someone else," she stammered. But he wasn't confused, and now she knew it. The HR coordinator looked between them, clearly puzzled. But the man, he didn't miss a beat. "I'm Damian Price, co-founder and CTO." He took a seat across from her, folding his hands calmly on the table. "And I believe we met yesterday outside this building. Though I must have looked a bit different." Jasmine's throat closed up. Her hands started to sweat. She could feel it. The table was turning. Damian Price was no ordinary exec. Before he co-founded Haven Tech, before he made millions in software, he'd been through hell. Grew up in foster care, lived out of his car in his 20s, built his empire brick by digital brick, and every once in a while, he'd go back to the streets, dress down, spend a few days walking in the shoes he once wore, talking to the people the world ignores. Not for fun, for perspective. "I like to remember where I came from," he once said. Because too many people forget how easy it is to end up with nothing. Jasmine hadn't just mocked a homeless man, she'd mocked a man who held her future in his hands. And now, that future was crumbling fast. But Damian didn't yell, didn't scold, didn't even raise his voice. He just let the silence hang, long enough to make Jasmine squirm. "You said something interesting yesterday," he said finally. "Get a job, you remember that?" Jasmine nodded slowly, her eyes wide with shame. "Well, Miss Carter, I have a job for you." Her heart jumped. Maybe he was going to give her a second chance. Maybe this was her shot at redemption. But then he leaned in. "You're going to walk back outside, find someone you'd normally step over, and apologize." Jasmine blinked. "Excuse me? You heard me. Take responsibility for your words. Then maybe we'll talk about this job." The HR coordinator looked stunned. Jasmine looked like she'd been slapped. But Damian? He looked calm, unbothered. Jasmine left the building in silence, and for the first time in years, she felt small, not because someone yelled at her, but because someone held up a mirror, and she didn't like what she saw. But the story doesn't end there, because Jasmine did go back outside. She found an older woman curled near the parking garage, clutching a shopping cart filled with old blankets and broken dreams, and Jasmine knelt down. "I'm sorry," she whispered, "for people like me, for being people like me." The woman didn't say much, just nodded slowly, and held her hand. That moment, it cracked something open in Jasmine, and maybe, just maybe, Damian saw it, because the next morning she got a call. "You've been offered a probationary role," the voice said, "under one condition." "What condition? What condition?" Jasmine asked. "You'll be working directly under Mr. Price, Community Outreach Division." Outreach. The word hit her like a challenge, and a sentence all at once, but she accepted. And that's when the real story began, because working under Damian wasn't easy. He pushed her, made her volunteer at shelters, made her file reports on people she used to ignore, made her sit and listen. At first she resisted, complained, rolled her eyes behind his back. But over time, something shifted. She began to see the people she served as people, not problems. She learned that homelessness wasn't just about bad choices. It was about layoffs, abuse, medical bills, trauma, things that could happen to anyone, even her, especially her. Months passed, and Jasmine began to earn trust, Damian's, and her own. She started a side project, an anonymous blog sharing real stories from the street. It took off fast, went viral within a month, and guess what? The same folks who mocked her in college for caring too much were now reposting her content. But with attention came danger, because Jasmine started digging deeper, interviewing people with secrets, stories involving city officials, crooked shelter managers, even developers bribing councilmen to push the homeless out for luxury condos. She brought some of it to Damian, but something about his reaction felt off. He didn't encourage her, didn't stop her either, just warned her. "Careful how far down you dig," he said. "Some roots don't want sunlight." She laughed, but it stuck with her. Then one night, her apartment door was open. Nothing stolen, nothing broken, just open, and on her kitchen table, a photo of her and Damian talking outside the shelter. A single word scribbled in red, "Quiet." Jasmine's hands shook. She knew what this was. Someone was watching, not just her blog, her, and it meant her story. This story was bigger than she thought, much bigger. She ran straight to Damian's office the next morning, but the receptionist said something that made her blood run cold. "Mr. Price isn't in." "Okay, when will he be back?" She checked the screen. "His calendar's been cleared." "What?" "All meetings canceled, no return date listed." Jasmine's stomach dropped, because in that moment, she realized something she hadn't considered. What if Damian wasn't just trying to protect her? What if Damian Price, the man she mocked, the man who taught her compassion, the man who changed her life, was hiding something? No Damian, no warning, just silence, and a message written in red, "Quiet." She'd gone from mocking a homeless man on the sidewalk to uncovering corruption and cover-ups no one wanted her to find. Now the same man who had given her a second chance, the one who changed the trajectory of her life, was gone, disappeared without a trace. And Jasmine, she didn't know if she was looking for her mentor, or her next mistake. Let's rewind, because the truth was always there, hiding beneath the surface, waiting. 3 months earlier, Damian Price was a hero. After Jasmine's public humiliation during the job interview, Damian gave her a chance most people wouldn't. He challenged her, pushed her into the streets, not to mock, but to listen, and Jasmine did. That's what made her dangerous, because people expected her to quit, to fumble, to show up once and disappear into the background. But Jasmine didn't disappear. She paid attention. She saw that some of the same homeless folks who shared stories of shelter abuse and police harassment were suddenly disappearing. No warning, no goodbye. The shelters wouldn't comment. The cops laughed her off. And Damian, he told her to slow down. "You're doing good work," he said, "but don't bite off more than you can chew." It felt like advice, but now after the photo on her kitchen table, it felt like a warning, and Jasmine was done playing quiet. She started digging. Late nights, cold coffee, phone calls that went unanswered, emails that bounced back, and then she got a hit. An anonymous message. "If you want to know where they went, follow the money. Start with BeaconCare." BeaconCare was a private security contractor. At first glance, they seemed harmless. just a company the city hired to support public safety efforts in high-density areas. But Jasmine found something chilling. BeaconCare wasn't just patrolling the streets. They were partnered with local shelters, managing overflow, redirecting problem residents, and those same residents vanished. She needed help, someone she could trust. So she called up Reggie, a former classmate, who now worked in data forensics. He owed her a favor. When she told him what she found, his voice went low. Jazz, if you're right about this, you're not just poking a bear, you're stepping into a den full of wolves. Then I guess I better learn how to bite. Reggie helped her trace BeaconCare's contracts. There was one name that kept appearing in the background.
Price Holdings.
She stared at the screen. Damian, the man who stood up for the voiceless, was funding the very system sweeping them away. It didn't make sense. Or maybe, it made too much sense. She needed answers, and to get them she needed to find Damian. But his condo was empty, his phone, disconnected. Even his assistant vanished off the grid. So Jasmine went back to where it all started, the street corner. She sat outside the same cafe where she once mocked him. This time no phone, no attitude, just silence. She sat there for hours. Then a woman approached, early 60s, worn clothes, familiar eyes. You Jasmine? Jasmine stood up slowly. Yes. The woman handed her an envelope. No name, no stamp, just a sticky note that said trust carefully. Inside was a flash drive, and a handwritten message. If you're reading this, I'm not missing, I'm hiding. The people we exposed aren't just corrupt, they're powerful. They don't play fair, and I couldn't protect you if I stayed in the open. But you were right to keep digging. You've almost got it. Just be ready for what comes next. Jasmine raced home and plugged the drive into her laptop. Inside, a trove of internal emails, spreadsheets showing millions moved through BeaconCare into offshore accounts, displacement logs detailing when and where certain individuals were relocated. But that wasn't the worst of it. There were videos, body cam footage from private contractors, violently removing unhoused people from abandoned buildings, testimonies. One file labeled simply, Test Subject 42, Facility C. She clicked it, and what she saw, it stole her breath. A concrete room, one single bulb, and a man chained to a cot, eyes swollen shut, voice weak. I didn't do nothing wrong, he muttered. They said they was gonna help me. Next thing I know, I'm here. They said I was a liability, said I saw too much. Jasmine paused the video, heart pounding. She recognized him. He was one of the men she'd served soup to 2 weeks prior. She remembered his face because he cried when she asked his name. He was missing now, but Damian had the footage, which meant Damian wasn't the villain, he was a whistleblower. But if that was true, why fund it at all? She dove deeper, found internal memos between Damian and city officials. It looked like Damian had been embedded within the system, not to enable it, but to gather evidence, to bring it all crashing down. The plan: collect enough data, expose the corruption through a non-profit front, let the world burn. But something went wrong. Someone found out, and now Damian was in hiding, and Jasmine had the only key to finish what he started. She took the drive to Bernice Palmer, an investigative reporter, known for exposing police corruption back in 2018. At first Bernice was skeptical, another activist with a conspiracy theory. Jasmine played the footage. By the time it ended, Bernice looked like she'd swallowed glass. My God, this is a story that could bring down the mayor, and get people killed, Jasmine added. Bernice looked at her. You're not just a witness anymore, Jasmine. You're the target now. The article went live a week later. Headline: Atlanta's Shadow Network, How the City Profits from Homeless Displacement. It exploded. National coverage, protests, subpoenas. People wanted heads to roll, but there was one name missing from the article: Damian Price. Bernice kept his identity out, for now, to protect him, and Jasmine. But power doesn't go down easy. 2 nights after the article dropped, Jasmine's apartment was broken into again. Her laptop gone, walls spray painted, a single word in red.
Enough.
She knew what it meant: back off, or disappear. But Jasmine had come too far, and that's when she got a call from an unknown number. She hesitated, answered.
Jasmine Carter.
The voice said, yes. Who is this? There was a pause. Then you want Damian. Meet me at 1 a.m., roof of the old Beacon Tower. Come alone. Click. She didn't sleep. She barely breathed. At 12:50, she parked outside the decaying Beacon Tower. climbed 11 flights of stairs, heart pounding in her ears. The rooftop was quiet.
Windy.
And then movement. A figure stepped from the shadows. Damian, alive, ragged, exhausted, but alive. Jasmine, he said, voice low. I didn't want to pull you into this. You already did. I know. He explained everything. How he'd taken the BeaconCare contract to infiltrate the network. How he was collecting evidence for over a year. How he went dark the moment one of his contacts got killed in a fire that was no accident. They have reach, he said. Judges, police, media. If they knew I was helping you, they already know. His face darkened. Then we're out of time. Suddenly, headlights. A van pulled up in the alley below. Doors slammed. Men in tactical gear moved toward the entrance. They found us, Jasmine whispered. Damian grabbed her wrist. There's a fire escape behind the storage unit. Go. What about you? I'll hold them off. You get that footage to Bernice. Tell her to release the full drive. I'm not leaving you. But he was already moving. Gunshots echoed through the stairwell. Jasmine didn't look back. She ran.